Good afternoon, everyone. Let me say to you, Deirdre, first and foremost, thank you for the invitation from you and your team to be a part of the conference today. It's a real honour for me to be here. As Emer has said, we are celebrating 25 years of restorative justice, and I'll tell you a little bit about that before I invite my partner in crime, not literally Rory, to come up and share the stage with me. But why this is such a privilege for me is, as you've heard, to celebrate and to mark 25 years, we commissioned a photographic exhibition by Gareth McConnell. Is Gareth in the audience? Oh, there he is. Okay. So I don't know if any of you have seen it. It's showing in Belfast Exposed Gallery for the next month. If you haven't seen it, you need to go. You need to see it. And Gareth has done an amazing job. But let me tell you what it's about, because in describing it, it really frames who we are as an organisation. It's called In the Shadow of the Butterfly Bush, or In the Shadow of the Buddha, as Emer has said. And the butterfly bush, some of you might know, I didn't, Gareth taught me this, is a difficult plant. It's a bit like a shrub, but behaves like a weed. And when it's in waste ground, it can permeate buildings and brickwork and cause decay. But if you're a keen gardener and you have the Buddha in your garden and it's not permeating buildings or brickwork and you let it be, it flowers into the most beautiful flower with purple and red and yellow and white colours, and it becomes an absolute thing of beauty. Why did we choose that name for our exhibition? 25 portraits, 25 photographs of 25 people that we have helped over the past 25 years. We're a community-based restorative justice programme, and how we started 25 years ago was to address one of the legacies of the violent conflict. Many of you will know that within working class communities here, a system of informal or summary justice grew up during the conflict, where the police weren't allowed to police our communities, so armed groups and paramilitaries began to police our communities. And if a young person or an adult was involved in antisocial behaviour or criminality or conflict of any kind, the paramilitaries would step in. They would give a warning. If that didn't change behaviour, they would beat that person. If that didn't change their behaviour, they would either expel them or they would put them out of the country. That system of violence did not work. So in 1997, some of us in the Shankill began to look at what would a different system look like in building a peaceful society. And I had just returned from the States, where I'd been working for 6 years in Chicago, running a restorative justice programme, and I was living on the Shankill. And I began to talk to some of these ex-prisoners and former combatants about this set of principles. Restorative justice would be amazing here. We could intervene. We could talk to the armed groups. We could say, back off, and we will take the young person through a system of helping them understand the human cost of their actions, how they'd hurt their victim, how they'd hurt their community, how they'd hurt themselves and their families. And we would take them on a journey of restoring relationships, not only with themselves and their community, but also bring them into face-to-face meeting with their victims. And we found within a 12-month period in the Shankill, we had completely reversed that system of paramilitary violence and punishment attacks. And our approach was one of healing. Our approach was one of dialogue. Our approach was one of engaging and involving all of the key stakeholders. And so along that journey, over the past 25 years, we have grown from 2 people to a staff of 50, from 1 office to 8 offices across Northern Ireland. But the essential ingredient to our success is that we're grassroots. We're rooted in community. We work with local people. We nurture young people and then we employ them. And over the past 25 years, we've always used the arts. We've always used photography. We've always used murals. We've always used other artistic means to engage people and tell the story. And so why this exhibition was so important, and I think for Gareth, we had an event last Thursday, and I think you were quite emotional. I was quite emotional looking at the portraits up on the walls of people who have been harmed and people who have harmed. And the thing about the Boudelet or the butterfly bush is we sometimes work with people who are in ugly situations, who do ugly things, but that doesn't define them. And through the lens of restorative justice, we help them, we don't do it, we help them turn themselves into things of beauty, where they flower and they become colourful and they begin to like themselves and like the world that they live in. I didn't bring photographs today of the exhibition because I want you to go and see it and experience it physically. That's my wee bit of coercion there. I hope it works. But what I did do is bring my own live photograph with me. So I'm going to invite Rory up to the stage. Rory, if you want to take a seat. We're on, yeah. Rory is one of those young men, I hope you don't mind me saying this, Rory, that was in a very ugly situation, doing ugly things. And I think today, Rory, you're a thing of beauty. And folks, I'm going to ask you to be very gentle with us because it's not easy to make yourself vulnerable. It's not easy to have your photograph on a wall in Belfast Exposed, sending out a message, I used to hurt people. I used to hurt communities. And I've moved away from that. Often as practitioners, we don't want to do that. But we expect the people that we work with to make themselves vulnerable. And Rory, I really appreciate you being here today and making yourself vulnerable. You're not afraid of a microphone, I know that.
Hello.
So Rory, tell us a little bit about how and why you became involved in restorative justice and with Northern Ireland Alternatives.
Yep. Hello, everyone. Thanks for having me. Yeah, so I'll give you kind of just the short story on how I ended up getting involved with Northern Ireland Alternatives. So from very young, 13, 14, I struggled massively with my behaviour and substance misuse. Kind of just developed over my whole teenage years to then when I did clean myself up for about a year when I was about 17, became a personal trainer, fell in love with bodybuilding. I was working full-time. I was independent. I did live by myself. I was 4 weeks out from a bodybuilding show, and then COVID hit. I developed an eating disorder. I lost my job as a personal trainer because we didn't know when gyms were going to reopen. And that's when I became a full-time cocaine addict. So I actually started taking cocaine to stop me from eating. Started drinking all the time. Obviously, as you can imagine, being independent, still had bills to pay. Obviously, cocaine isn't a cheap habit either. So I started getting involved in crime, started surrounding myself with other people that took lots of drugs. And yeah, it just completely spiraled out of control for the next few years. Got quite deep into it, and then I got arrested a few weeks after my 21st birthday and was sent to Maghaberry. I was held in remand there for a while. My mental health was completely in the toilet. Just before, like my mental health was wrecked the whole way through, to be fair, but especially then, I think I didn't really have anything to lose. So I always knew going to prison was obviously part of the job role, I say. But I wasn't speaking to my mum and dad or anything. And I think the turning point for me then was I didn't speak to them. You have a chance to call them when you're in non-communicado before it goes out in the news. And I was like, no chance, not dealing with that now. And they actually reached out to me. So they come and give me a Zoom on when I was inside. And didn't shout at me, didn't try and lecture me. They were just like, we need to get this sorted. You've made your mistake. How can we help you? And that was kind of like, I was like, whoa. It's kind of like a little boy's dream, I suppose, because I've realised I had someone there. So they got me out. Anxiety was so bad, I couldn't even speak or hold a conversation. Tried to go to get help for my mental health, but it was all over the phone. And I'm quite a in-face people person. I like to see people's faces and stuff. So I ended up hanging up on them, felt completely hopeless because I was like, well, if these professionals can't help me, I'm stuffed, essentially. But then I did get referred to alternatives where I, within 2 weeks, got set up with Emmett, who's a trauma addiction therapist who removed my anxiety basically in the space of 2 sessions. I always say it's better than any drug I've ever taken. And I started a restorative program with alternatives, which is where I went. And now it took a while for me to open up, so it did go on for about a year. But I learned about what I was doing. It wasn't just hurting me. It wasn't just hurting my family, but potentially the worst harms you could have caused in the community and other people's families. And then, as you said, I met a victim, and that kind of completely flipped my mindset, so it did.
Thank you, Rory. So you have been through a very difficult journey, yeah? And you've talked a lot about trauma and anxiety and how that has affected you. Tell us a little bit more about meeting the victim and understanding the hurt and harm that you caused to the community. And you said that was flipped your mindset. In what way did it? Did that make you better or make you worse? Yeah,
so I remember being extremely nervous meeting sort of a victim, and it was like I was a mum that's daughter had been going through sort of from the area that I sold drugs in as well. So it was just very eye-opening because obviously whenever you're involved in all that, every person's just a transaction. Like, you don't actually think that they could be going and overdosing, or that could be their last £100 and they're not feeding their kids. You don't think about anything like that, and you don't think about the other harm it's causing. Like, again, obviously selling drugs, you're feeding addicts. Addiction doesn't just affect the one person, it affects the whole family. It affects everyone around them. So it was good to sort of be faced with that. And, I'd already been sort of volunteering a wee bit and stuff, and I'd already started to learn. But I think that was a real turning point for me where I was like, the amount of hurt that I could have caused, the amount of lives I've probably damaged, it's not just about me, this process, it's about everyone. And I think that's why I do what I do now, to try and sort of help give back, because essentially I should still be sitting in prison cell looking for another 3 years. So that's why I do what I do now, to give back and try and stop other young people doing the same things that I did. I believe good people are just stuck in bad situations and they don't know any better. And if you're shown a better route or you're shown a better path, then 90% of young people would probably take it.
Tell us, Rory, about the trauma journey you've been on. You've been seeing Emmett off and on for quite a while. Why has it been so significant for you to get that kind of help to make you the man you are today? So when I first heard about Rory and when he first came to see us, he couldn't even carry on a conversation. Can you believe that? Because he never shuts his gob now. So he couldn't even look up and look us in the eye as the workers that were working with them. So, Rory, we're a conference today about trauma and the arts. Tell us one part of what has worked for you.
Yeah, so I actually had never even heard of trauma until I'd met Emma. I never knew that was a thing. I was like, he kind of taught me why people are addicted to drugs. Why can we not just stop after one day? Everyone has trauma. Everyone has trauma as well, which is something that I've learned. And he took me through techniques where, I will never forget it, where we were sitting in his room, and I would never have even said this affected me. But it was how something that happened to me when I was maybe 5 or 6, but was obviously, in the grand scheme of life, it's not a big a deal, but for a 6-year-old, it's the worst thing in the entire world. And because that traumatized me through then my adulthood, because it was never dealt with, I then brought that into my adult behaviours, which then obviously makes it a lot worse. So what we were able to do was go in, and I didn't even need to tell him what the trauma was, but he was able to remove that emotional connection to the point now that I can't even think of it. And that was such a simple thing. Obviously, there was a lot of bigger stuff, that I had to deal with. There was maybe giving me nightmares, sort of PTSD and stuff. And now I can sleep like a baby. It's kind of removed that, and it doesn't mean that I've forgiven myself. It just means that I've processed and dealt with it. And there's still a lot of stuff still there. And the one thing I've learned as well about dealing with trauma is you have to be ready to go in and sort of process that and deal with it. So I still meet with Emmett, I still speak to him every day now. He's a friend of mine, which has been really good. But we still would do, so every so often I'd be like, this keeps coming into my head. I think I'm ready to go in and, deal with that now. And we would then go through and do it. So it's been amazing. Trauma, I still don't think a lot of young people realize what trauma is and, what that is. And I still don't think a lot of people realize that can be the cause of a lot of young people's actions and how important. If we were in America, everyone would have a therapist. It's just, you know what I mean? But over here, it's weird to have a therapist. And that's what I try to talk about. My therapist, I see him more than my friends. Do you know what I mean? So in theory, we have a better connection.
Thank you, Rory. I want to take you back to New Year's Eve, the 31st of December, 2023. Do you remember it?
Yes.
Okay. So, and this is putting it into the Northern Ireland context. So, the newspapers didn't have a lot to write about on New Year's Eve that year. And so Rory was on the front of the Sunday Life or the Sunday World? Sunday Life.
There was two. It was a front page and double page spread in the middle.
Yeah. And partly because of the level of drugs that he had been caught with in the taxi when the police had stopped. Also because of the hurt and harm caused to community. Also because of the link then to the paramilitary organisation that he had been dealing for. And also because, probably, Rory, you were let out on remand. Yeah? So talk to us about that, because that night Rory phoned me in a panic and said, is the paramilitary organisation going to come after me? Can I not go back into that area? Can you fix this for me? Because I am so scared they're going to come after my family who also lives in that area. So, Rory, you seem very together, and you are, but there's still ghosts that you live with and consequences of your actions that are with you every day. What is that like for you?
Yeah, well, it's not nice. Obviously, back to the paper, so my court case lasted nearly 3 years. It got to 2 years. And I was so glad it took that long, because I should have been serving a long time in prison. I'm on a 4-year license, 4-year license now. So I should have been inside for a long time. But the judge, I think, seen with my work through alternatives, and Debbie came in and spoke throughout the court process on my behalf, and I had to pass a 6-month clean drug test and stuff. But, because it took that long, it took a lot of time for me to go through and rehabilitate myself, which I do say now that realistically, if they had rushed and sent me back to prison or sent me into prison, I probably would have come out just a better criminal because I'm surrounded with other criminals, So this gave me a chance to really change. And the court case had kind of just ended. And I remember my dad ringing me at like 7 a.m. And to be fair, it was actually a wee bit of a relief because I was like, he's never up that early. He's died, And then he was like, did you see the news? I was like, no. And obviously this was all up. And my first initial was, because obviously I moved out of the area that I lived in into a new area, which is also still run by people. I live above the shop, which all the newspapers were in. And obviously I haven't walked around for the last 2 years shouting about what I've been doing or what I've been going through. So I was kind of worried that they were going to presume that I had been talking in a way, like explaining, I never once said, that I've been working for anyone or doing anything like that there. And it was a kind of a presumption. So I was worried that they were going to come out and think, oh, this has been on the paper. He's been saying all this. We need to speak. Because it had blown over. I went ghost for like 6 months. Didn't reply, didn't go on my phone. I was quite lucky that I wasn't in any debt. So I was able to ghost it and kind of just let it blow over. And I was worried this was all going to come back up again and come back to, bite me in the ass. So kind of, yeah. But yeah, even now, I didn't go to my mum and dad's house for the guts of the 2 years because they live in East Belfast. I would go to their house now, but I still wouldn't walk down the New Nord Road. There's a lot of trauma still there, Sometimes I see people that I think look like certain people, and I'm like, it's something that I think I'm always going to have to live with. There's still stuff that I need to process, because obviously that lifestyle you are always looking over your shoulder, and yeah, I think that is it. So,
Rory, tell everyone what you're doing now.
Yeah, so it's actually been open nearly a year. So last 15th of May last year. I launched my own organisation focused on helping young people with addiction and mental health. Basically, I use my lived experience and physical exercise to take young people. Let's say young people. My clients actually now range from 16 to 50, so anyone's young.
Nothing wrong with being 50.
So I basically do workshops trying to get into schools and stuff. I do a lot of one-to-one work. I have a 90% success rate in getting young people sober within 10 weeks. And I am about to release a 30-day recovery program, which will be online. And I basically do it because I believe there's a lot of young people there that aren't educated around addiction, aren't aware of you can take coke this weekend, doesn't mean it's not going to have fentanyl in it next weekend and kill you. And there's not enough people talking about it. So I come out and use my voice now on TikTok, on Instagram, to people in the street, to places like this, to spread awareness and really get the point out there that we need young people with lived experience to talk about it, because that's who young people listen to, essentially.
Rory, just before we close, you obviously like art.
Yes.
Yeah, we can see that. Tell us why you chose to be in the photographic exhibition.
So I chose to be in it because obviously it's part of celebrating alternatives. And I'll be forever grateful, no matter how long my story goes on for and how long I live to tell. Alternatives will forever be the main chunk to make me turn my life around. And I think we need to remove the stigma. I don't think there should be any shame if you've turned your life around. People make mistakes in the past. I actually have a tattoo in my leg that do not give your past the power to define your future. I think if you've went through the resilience to turn your life around and do good and spread awareness and help people, that you should shout about it and you should show people. Like, that's what I say to my clients all the time. Why do you think people that get sober shout about it and talk about it and celebrate it so much? Because it's absolutely horrendous to get through the first bit. And whenever you do, you feel so rewarded. So I think if you're stuck in crime or you're stuck in anything like this and you're able to turn your life around and get out the other side, why would you not, shout about it? It's such a big change. So it is, so...
Thank you, Rory. That was incredible. So in closing, I just want to say a couple of things. One is the photographic exhibition was powerful and important for us organisationally. One, because of the process. Gareth McConnell, as a photographer, wasn't just a photographer. What he did with each person was he engaged them in the process of telling their story as they were sitting there. He affirmed them. He made them feel special. And the process of being involved in that elevated many of those people just in how they felt about themselves. And secondly, photographs are important, and this is why I want you to go and see it. Because those photographs on the wall of Belfast Exposed are screaming out, see me, like me, support me. My story matters, and I matter. And the photographs are helping us to tell their story through a completely different lens. Thank you.